We're all taught that wisdom and confidence are supposed to be two sides of the same coin. But what if the opposite is actually true? Well, psychology tells a very different and I think a far more interesting story about why the wisest minds are often the ones most full of doubt. So let's dive in. That's what we're going to dig into, this quiet, kind of unsettling paradox. Why is it that the very people who think the most deeply are often the ones who seem haunted by hesitation? It's this confusing struggle that, honestly, many of us feel, but very few of us really understand. So, let's start with what I like to call the confidence paradox. It's really all about this profound disconnect between what we expect from capable minds and what's actually going on inside of them. I mean, think about it. Our entire culture celebrates quick, decisive action. We see certainty as a sign of competence, right? We look at someone who claims they have it all figured out, and we just assume they must be intelligent. We're taught to believe that learning is the straight path to a firm, unshakable foundation of knowledge. But here's the twist. The evidence we have suggests the exact opposite is often true. The very act of thinking deeply, of processing more information, seeing more connections, and understanding more nuance, it doesn't lead to simple certainty. No, it leads to a profound awareness of complexity, and with that comes doubt. And this leads to an internal experience that can feel incredibly isolating. You might find yourself caught in this quiet, confusing struggle where your greatest cognitive strengths actually start to feel like your biggest personal flaws. Okay, this slide really lays out that mismatch perfectly. On one side, you have what society expects from intelligent people, quick decisions. But the reality? It's often chronic overthinking. We expect unwavering confidence, but instead, we find persistent self-doubt. We think there should be social ease, but the psychological reality for so many is this feeling of being out of sync with everyone around them. And where we expect a smooth road to success, we often find these intense, really complex emotional experiences. And here's the key. This isn't a failure. It's a feature of a mind that simply sees more. This quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of it. This isn't just some theory. It is a lived reality for so many people. That feeling of being misunderstood, of having your careful hesitation seen as a weakness, that's a common thread for people whose minds are constantly working overtime. Your struggle isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign your mind is doing more. So, let's get into the why. What are the actual cognitive mechanics that cause this persistent uncertainty? Because it's not a mystery. It's actually a pretty well-documented psychological pattern. All right, so the crucial concept here is something called the intellectual humility effect. It's this beautiful paradox. The more you learn, the more you become acutely aware of the sheer vastness of what you don't know. And listen, this is not imposter syndrome. It's an accurate assessment of reality just from a higher vantage point. And this effect gets amplified by these specific traits. A mind with a high processing capacity is constantly juggling more variables, it's seeing patterns that others miss, and it feels this deep sensitivity to inconsistencies and illogical arguments. It analyzes emotions with a depth that creates incredible complexity. And the thing is, each one of these cognitive strengths also doubles as a source of doubt. To really make this tangible, let's use a metaphor. I want you to imagine that everything you know for certain is an island, and everything you don't know is the vast, dark ocean that surrounds it. Now, if your island of knowledge is small, you have a very short shoreline. Your boundary where the known meets the unknown is pretty contained. It's easy to feel like you've got a handle on almost everything, because your world is small and it feels manageable. But as you learn, as you become wiser, your island grows. And what happens then? Well, the shoreline, that border with the unknown, it gets longer and longer and longer. The more you know, the more surface area you have that's touching the vast, humbling reality of what you have yet to discover. That expanding shoreline, that is your doubt. It is a sign of growth, not a sign of failure. This pattern isn't just about intellect, it's also forged in experience. In fact, these two paths, having a highly active mind and having a challenging past, they often lead to the same place. People who go through hardship develop these powerful adaptations that, from the outside, can look a lot like the traits we've been talking about. Just look at this list. Emotional independence, hyper-awareness, self-sufficiency. These aren't weaknesses. They're survival skills. They're strengths that were built in response to unreliable or complex environments. So what others might see as you being aloof or overly sensitive is actually a highly tuned system for navigating the world.
These adaptations, just like high intelligence, they increase your awareness of nuance and consequence, and by extension, your careful hesitation.
Okay, so what do we do with all this? How do we put it all together? The key really is reframing. It's about taking this internal experience that feels like a defect and learning to see it for the strength it truly is. This is such a powerful shift in perspective. You are not slow to act, you are selective in your motivation, waiting for things to align with your internal standards. You're not overly sensitive, you are highly aware, picking up on subtleties that most people miss. And most importantly, you are not unsure, you're humble enough to recognize that the world is just way too vast to be captured by a single, simple truth. Let that one sink in for a minute. Your doubt isn't proof of your inadequacy. It is the shadow cast by your depth, your awareness, and your capacity to see the full picture. It is a direct byproduct of your ability. Because when you really think about it, absolute certainty is a closed loop. It's a declaration that there's nothing left to learn, nothing more to see. It's comfortable for sure, but it's also a ceiling. It's the end of curiosity. Doubt, on the other hand, is an open door. It's the engine of curiosity, it's the fuel for growth, and it's the hallmark of a mind that is alive and still exploring. So really, the final question is, where are you choosing to live? Are you going to stay in the room with the ceiling, or are you going to walk through that open door?